It's Dr. Ralph May, Community Guidance Center, semi-retired, still putting in, what, 1 day a week?
1 day a week at the Guidance Center still, Todd.
All right. All right. I wanted to ask you in today to talk about something that just occurred to me that we needed to talk about. Our conversation brought to you by Marcus & Mack, a law firm representing injured people. Pandemic restrictions easing a bit, folks getting back out onto the streets. That can produce some anxiety, though, and I see it in news headlines more than anywhere else. But you do see it in person as well. People who are reticent to be around others, people who are fearful of others, people who are kind of aggressive around others for how they are approaching COVID-19. It's not an easy time right now, even now, is it?
No, it isn't. And, I was looking at some of the data on anxiety and depression, and the CDC's been doing some rolling evaluations of depression and anxiety. And basically, anxiety and depression over the last 6 months has gone up from 36% of the population that was surveyed to 42% of the population was surveyed. So, and unmet mental health needs has gone up from 9% to 13%. So what was happening is people are getting more worn down as time goes on. And people are maybe a little less likely to seek help. And I think it's also interesting, the population that seems to be the most affected, we saw this at the beginning, 19 to 29-year-olds.
Oh, yeah.
Which is very interesting to me because that's the wired-in generation, right? That's the social media generation. They seem to be more differentially impacted by anxiety and depression during the pandemic, even though they tend to use more social media.
Yeah, we would think that they would be better able to handle it because of their proficiency with electronics, but it's not the case.
It's the physical distancing that's differentially impacting them. It's that they can't get together and go out together, and they can't go to sports activities together. And so you're seeing the population fatigue there, like it's time to do something. But fear is the strongest thing in this pandemic, and the uncertainty that's come from the variants and not knowing exactly what's going on, and some people getting vaccinated, some people not getting vaccinated. So there's kind of this global uncertainty about, am I safe? Am I not? Am I safe? Am I not? Where am I safe? Where am I not safe? Do I need to wear a mask? Do I not need to wear a mask? So this is creating this, as we phase out of the pandemic, and we are phasing out of the pandemic. We will be out of this by the middle of the year, toward the end of the year. This is a time of great anxiety. And we've seen this before in pandemics and epidemics where people are afraid because they're not sure it's safe or not. Some people get angry because they're tired of this. I heard a football metaphor from one of the scientists, which is great. He says, we're on the 5-yard line. There's a minute left. We're driving for the tying touchdown, and the whole offensive line stands up and says, well, we're done with this. We're just tired of this. We're going to go get a cold one. We're done. Well, we gotta remember we're getting through this. We're almost at the end, but the frustration, the fear, and the anger over this whole situation is just worn people down.
That mix of emotions is really interesting to me because it's a mix of people now out on the street.
Right.
You're coming across everybody. Everybody is tired of being cooped up, and so we've got all of these things coming together, and that transition period is really, really fascinating to me. When we get through this, we'll have our own new set of issues. But right now, is this something that you could see coming, or is this something that has a precedent in terms of people being able to mix together a little bit more after having been confined for a while?
Yeah, there's precedent from the previous epidemics where people slowly, progressively will start reintroducing themselves to one another. Now, there will always be people who are more afraid and will be slower to reengage. And there will be those people that run for the door. I'm just tired of this. I can't go through this anymore. So what you're going to have is a mix, and that's the reality of it. We're not going to have a big stamp on our forehead saying vaccinated.
There's some people that want that.
Yeah, right? I know, but that's not going to happen. What it's going to be is we're going to have to deal with this uncertainty as part of our navigation. Now, the responsible person, I find myself, when I'm going somewhere, I'm vaccinated. I have both my vaccines. I'm clean. I've been away. I've been vaccinated 6 weeks ago. I got both of them. My wife's got them. So I make sure that people understand I'm okay. The research says I'm okay, but you might not be okay with me. Do you want me to wear a mask? Do you want me to not wear a mask? So I engage in a we need to engage in conversations, about our mutual safety and mutual interest.
But we've forgotten how to do that.
I think we get and fear, again, I keep coming back to fear. Fear is a profoundly motivating emotion. It requires us to do something immediately to escape the fear. And some people will react badly. They will react impulsively. They will react with anger or not communicate I think the point is we don't communicate effectively when we're afraid. The metaphor is if I'm running from a lion, I don't have time to talk, right?
Yeah.
So the concept is we're not running from a lion. We have time to talk, to think about our reaction, and to think about one another. From the beginning, I've said, with freedom comes responsibility, right? They're two sides of the same coin. So in order to exercise our freedoms, we have to exercise our responsibilities to one another. And so our responsibilities to one another that will reduce fear is talking with one another about what's okay and what's not, instead of reacting. You
mentioned, you said a phrase a couple of moments ago, and I don't want people to gloss over it. You were talking about ourselves and the way that we are reacting to things, but then we need to understand other people don't feel the way that we do. Other people have their own range of emotions that they're working through too. And coming to that understanding should inform the way that we behave around them.
Absolutely. The ability to and fear drives us to think it's just about ourselves, right? Our own self-preservation. And I think that's what we're in right now. Everybody is interested in their own self-preservation because of the uncertainty and the fear. Human beings are better than that. We are better than that. We just have to pull on our best, which is thinking about the other person. Freedom just isn't about my freedom. It's about our responsibility, our freedom. And so working together, communicating with one another is the key to getting through this. And it'll be the key to get through the transition back to whatever normal is, and it's going to be normal. But I'm concerned about next year and when the waves of what's been held back break through. We're going to have some anxiety, depression, and other PTSD issues as time goes on. So I want everybody to understand this is a rolling stressor, which means we have the basic skills of talking to one another, listening to one another, trying to understand. You don't have to agree, but try to understand one another. That's what we're missing.
And then the interesting thing is that the isolation that we've been enduring for the last year, that has eroded those skills. The skills that we need most of all right now are the ones that have been really, really adversely affected. Yeah,
we need to get back into the practice of making eye contact, talking to one another, actually wearing pants, you know what I mean, and really communicating with one. And it'll be a wonderful thing if we can embrace it as such. And we'll be through this middle to the end of the year. We're going to be through this pandemic and then dealing with the ramifications of what that means.
There will be tons and tons of studies of what the isolation has done to us over the course of this past year. What did it do?
The isolation has created an increased depression, an increased fear, and a loss of kind of social connectedness in a way that makes us feel like we're on an island, where all of us are on islands. And we have to get off the island, and we have to get with one another again. But what's going to happen is I think people are going to find some wonderfulness in reconnecting and some disappointment in reconnecting. Because I think what we do is we idealize how great it's going to be, when we reconnect.
Yeah.
And then, oh my God, things aren't perfect. Things aren't all wonderful. It isn't all sunshine and rainbows. We have to deal with some leftover or maybe new stuff.
Yeah.
And so the concept of resilience, we got to roll with this. We got to remember what we're about, who we are. This will be okay, but we have to do our part, which is remember to communicate effectively about how we feel, but also listen to other people.
Those expectations that we have, when I saw you this morning, I haven't seen you for a while, I said, Dr. Ralph, you've lost weight. I've lost weight as well. Others haven't. I read this morning that the average American has gained 29 pounds in the past year. 29
inactivity, and that's another impact of the isolation of the pandemic is that people get setting down. They get very sedentary. And also, the truth is, if you're home, you get to hit the fridge, hit the chips, so you're snacking more, you're more inactive. It's a simple formula for gaining weight. So, I made an effort to make sure that even though I remained active during the pandemic, I was still one of the people who were essential. I made an effort to run more, to take better care of myself, to watch my diet. And I think that's really, you're going to see an explosion in the exercise industry and in the activity industry.
But there are a group of people out there, those who have gained weight or have had other negative effects that are going to have expectations going out into the public, and they're going to say to themselves, "Oh, that guy did well, and look at me."
Right.
And their self-image is really going to suffer.
It will, and that's another one of those negative effects of the pandemic that we have to come to terms with and say, okay, what are we going to do now? Okay. We are now not
move
isolated
forward.
anymore. What's the plan? I gain 29 pounds. I can lose 29 pounds if I get back to activity, if I get back to a routine. And that's what we have. Reestablishment of normal routine, by the way, is one of the big things after pandemics, is reestablishing the routine as normal. That may not be the exact same routine you had before the pandemic, but establishing a regular routine and structure is going to be very important in our recovery.
Yeah. Certainly will. He's Dr. Ralph May joining us here this morning. And it's always the case. We get to the end of the segment, and I feel like there's so much more we could cover. But we'll have to have you back really, really soon because there's much more to talk about on this topic.
You ask me, I'll be here.
He's Dr. Ralph May with us this morning. It is the voice of Indiana County, WCCS 101.1 FM and AM 1160.